Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily with Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com.
We welcome you into the Tuesday edition of Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com. Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers back with you at 11 a.m. Eastern, a spot where 90 minutes ago I was planning to start the show with some good news. Good news for Ronald Acuna. 90 minutes later, Ray, the news on Acuna is still good, but we've got bad news that probably supersedes that. So just a warning to everybody, we're going to start in that direction. And Ray, it's a pitcher injury. Don't you love it? Pitcher injuries, and this one is a little more than will he or will he not be ready for opening day. We got a major issue with Lucas Giolito right now.
We do, and we'll get into it. And, by the way, if people missed this report, Shane Baz hurt his oblique picking a weight up. 24-year-old, prime of his life, hurt a weight picking. I don't know what's going on. I was talking to Phil Backer before the show today, and, I'm thinking – legitimately, if I'm a front office person, here's what I'm telling all my pitchers. Stop throwing 97. Throw 92. I'll take you throwing 92 for 165 innings versus you throwing 97 for 80 innings. At some point, this has got to stop, Kyle, because these guys can't even make it through spring training. It's an epidemic.
Well, the one I hear, the weightlifting injury, I'm like, stop lifting weights. Isn't that an off-season thing? And I know it isn't. They have a weight room in every major league stadium, but it's like, guys, and you're just picking up. We've all done it. You pick up with your back and not your legs. You get lazy around heavier weights. So on and on and on we go. And yesterday was full of injury talk. Today is no different. Great to have you on board wherever you are hoping to enjoy the day. My day's already kind of ruined. I drafted Lucas Giolito in that 50-round slow draft. Ray's got him too. And what, AL labor or where do you have
mixed labor?
Mixed labor. So, and we're not the only ones, but not looking good for Lucas Giolito. A lot of other things to get to as well. If you've got any questions, any comments, I see somebody is already saddened by the Lindy Ruff dismissal in the NHL. Yeah, somebody's sad about that. What is that, Sal? Yeah, Sal's upset with Lindy Ruff. That one didn't register. I'm kind of registering the Lucas Giolito news at this juncture. But whatever you got on your mind, send them our way via Facebook, YouTube, RX. Happy to take them. What do we got coming up today? Well, as warned, we got injuries. News is not good for Lucas Giolito. Could be season-ending news for Lucas Giolito. News is as good as you could expect for Ronald Acuna. And the news is somewhere in the middle for Justin Verlander. So we will get to all three of those situations. We will continue our rundown of all things starting pitchers this week. Yesterday, we ran through the top 12. Within that top 12 last season, there were a few surprising names. Zach Eflin was in there. Justin Steele was in there. We'll look beyond those surprises and dig a little deeper at the position. Guys who maybe emerged just a bit in 2023 and what's the outlook for 2024. Our team preview, we'll take a look at the Minnesota Twins. Ray will give us a rundown of what the goals are with the player profile series. One of my favorite things that Ray Flowers does is the player profile series. And Ray, how many player profiles are we up to at this very moment?
That is a good question. I think that there are about 8 or 9 that are up, but basically from here on out, it's a player profile every day. So expect that to greatly grow. We got some names here coming. Lucas Giolito was on the list. I don't think he's going to be getting one
that
now.
Was a wasted write-up, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I didn't start it, luckily.
Okay.
But guys like James Outman, Teoscar Hernandez, Brandon Donovan, Cole Reagans, Eduardo Rodriguez. So those are some of the names that we're starting with. But again, basically the rest of the way, we're pretty much doing one of these every day.
I'm going to make a request because now that I lost Lucas Giolito, Ray, I'm looking at available options on the pitching side. Now I've got to go more pitching in my slow draft than I thought. I could use a write-up on Josiah Gray. That'd be a good one for me.
Okay.
I need it like now. Now. I probably got the pick coming up in 5 hours. So
all right, I'll just not do the show today. I'll get on that, Cal.
That's what I like to hear. See, that's the power of the spot I hold here on the show is I can recommend Ray do player profiles. I love it. It's one of my favorite things on the show. What else? NBA, Justin Fensterman. It's a Tuesday. He's going to stop in and some NFL talk, QB news. It's over in Denver. Russell Wilson and Ray, I guess he's walking away with $125 million guaranteed for like 2 bad years in Denver. That's a hell of a gig for Russell Wilson.
I mean, he's getting $39 million this year too, and then whatever he signs for. I wish people would say I was terrible at my job, like you're saying, and give me $100 million too. So it's interesting. I know he's not a superstar, but it's really interesting. Some of these teams don't seem interested in the guy that is better than what they got. It's very weird.
What else though, Ray? And I was thinking about this as I was driving home this morning from dropping a little guy off at daycare, but it's like there are 2 distinct, maybe you could say 3, but I think 2 distinct careers. It's pre-injured thumb and post-injured thumb for Russell Wilson.
Interesting.
I mean, he has just fallen off a cliff. He has just not been at all the same guy. What year was that? 2021? I think where the last half of the season, he missed most of it. And he came back, and I think he had 1 or 2 good games, but he's just been a disaster ever since that. So we'll dig into Wilson. There's some thoughts on Kirk Cousins, maybe leaving Minnesota. So, yes, the NFL still hits us with plenty of news. Ray, hit us with a sale. How about that? You got a sale for us today? Anything to get excited about?
I do. We actually have our March Madness guide available right now at fantasyguru.com, so you can sign up for that. We've got our Game Time MVP plan. We'll have Justin Fensterman on here in a bit. Justin and I are on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday through Thursday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, basically doing a highlight show, right? We're reacting in real time to what's going on right now. It's all hockey and basketball. We'll obviously add baseball in about a month. People can sign up for the MVP plan, the Game Time MVP plan that includes basketball, hockey, PGA, MMA, racing, soccer, all those things, wagering in DFS. Just go to the website, fantasyguru.com, click on the banner at the top of the page that says Game Time. You can get right to where you need to be to get all those sports for one low price. And then we've got the baseball guide right now. It's still available. I checked this morning, still on early bird pricing. It's supposed to change this week. It's $50 right now for the entire season of baseball coverage. If you use the promo code FSD20, FSD20, that knocks it down 20%, which means for $40, you can get the rest of the season coverage at fantasyguru.com.
Okay, so check it out. And there is no excuse. I don't want to hear from anybody in May. Where can I find season-long coverage? Like, we're giving it to you on the cheap right now for $40 the whole year. Whole year. That subscription, I promise, will last longer than Lucas Giolito.
Cold, Kyle.
Yeah, just cold, just frozen cold. Ray, what we're here, this is what Jeff Passan of ESPN had this. We've got a UCL flexor strain. It's not like, oh, he's finished, but Ray, he's kind of finished. It's coming our way, I think, with Giolito.
Yeah, he's got a partially torn UCL. The ulnar collateral ligament is the ligament that if it goes, you have Tommy John surgery or internal brace surgery. You have to have surgery if that ligament goes. Interestingly enough, I'm trying to remember, R.A. Dickey was the guy that didn't have a UCL, I think, right? I think it was R.A. Dickey. He didn't have one, so it was never there to break, and I threw a knuckleball anyway. But it's the main ligament that everyone goes down with Tommy John surgery. So early read on this situation with Giolito, and the comments coming out strongly suggest there is a tear, a significant tear. A significant tear almost always leads to surgery of some kind. Yeah. So it's very likely that his season is over if this report from Jeff Passan is accurate. Jeff Passan, in my opinion, is not in the Ian Rappaport zone. He's in the Adam Schefter zone. So I think his reporting is going to be accurate. So my expectation at this point is the Red Sox lost their big addition on the hill and Lucas Giolito. And that's tough because Giolito was looking at a bounce back season. I think, as you mentioned, you had drafted him. I had drafted him. He was someone that, even with the struggles last year, still gave you the innings and the strikeouts. And it appears that, again, without being confirmed completely, but it appears his season is over. And now the Red Sox look like they're going to have a very young starting rotation, Kyle.
Well, and one big question with that Red Sox team has been, where will the starters go? Where the relievers go? And as you look at it now, Ray, I mean, Pivetta, a guy who was in the bullpen a lot last season, is probably in this rotation. Additionally, Cutter Crawford, Tanner Houck, and I guess Garrett Whitlock. These guys we wondered about, Ray, we're probably ready to just throw them in the rotation, right?
Yeah, and I think this is the best news for the last two names you mentioned, Houck and Whitlock. Two guys that are both 27 years old, turning 28 this season. Two right-handed pitchers that I think have obviously the stuff to be a successful major league pitcher in the rotation. Both Houck and Whitlock have started, relieved, started, relieved, started, relieved. They've been all over the map, and we've talked about this a lot. I don't like how teams handle young pitchers, but no one asked me. The Red Sox will have, looks like a 5-man rotation of all righties. If you look in their bullpen, their top 3 arms in the bullpen, all righties. So they might have some issues with matchups, but this is news. I'll go in after the show today. I'll do a refresh of the pitching rankings because now we got like 7 guys that have to all move around. Now we have to take Whitlock out of the reliever pool, put him in the starting pool, et cetera, et cetera. But Houck and Whitlock are 2 guys that are very intriguing if indeed they're given the opportunity to throw 140 plus innings this year as starting pitchers. And it seems like both of them are going to get that chance.
They actually, and this is one of the weird features of bad news, is that actually, Ray, those guys kind of become more draftable, I think, because of what we think is going to happen now in the rotation. So that is news where Whitlock and probably Houck were not really on my radar too much, but got to put them on my radar at this juncture. And I don't think, these are not guys you want to draft as like your first 5 starting pitchers, but as bench round pitchers, I think both these guys could fit the bill. And like you said, there's talent there. There could be numbers there as well from those guys. Maybe it's not great, but maybe you're getting 9-10 wins and a high 3 ERA from one of these guys with strikeouts this season.
Yeah, and we talked about the breakout pitcher of the year piece. We were talking about Justin Steele last year and how that hit. The current piece is up over at fantasyguru.com right now. Garrett Whitlock was on he's been on the list, right? Like there's skills here that I really like. So I think that, Whitlock in particular, Houck is someone he's still kind of looking for that third pitch. I think Whitlock he's intriguing. So again, I'll go in after the show today because we have to adjust Giolito, Houck, Whitlock. We also have a scenario where, Braxton Garrett looks like he's going to miss opening day. We're going to talk about Justin Verlander in a second. So Kyle, we were joking about this, but I feel here on March 5th, like the pitching rankings are already starting to crumble and we're weeks away from the start of the season. It's rough, but silver lining, a guy like Garrett Whitlock, who cared at some point in a lot of leagues, is now someone to care about.
And you mentioned the Verlander news, Ray. It's, it's not season ending like we have with Giolito, but the Astros have pretty well admitted the obvious because he's been slowed here in the early going of camp. He's going to start the year on the IL. And so you're right. Here's a couple of ready examples of what we've got with pitching. And I think it just reiterates or begs the reminder, how about that if you're in a 12-team league, Ray, the smart move is to be walking away from that draft with at least 8 pitchers, starting pitchers. Probably 9 starting pitchers too. And some people may dispute that, Ray, because in a 12-team league, there's something to be found perhaps on the waiver wire, but I'd still rather take my shot on draft day, going after some younger arms or maybe some guys who can get me a good 10 to 15 starts this year. So I again, if you're 12 teams, 29 rounds, again, I'm shooting for 9 of those 29 picks to probably be starting pitchers just because the depth is mandatory right now in fantasy drafts. You can't be a guy doing just 7 starting pitchers in your draft, and yet I still see it.
Yeah, there's a series of 3 articles coming out at fantasyguru.com. The first one came out today. I thought Kyle and I could talk about this on Friday. Kyle, I'm flash forwarding to Friday. Today is the perfect draft early pitching.
Okay.
Tomorrow's the perfect draft middle pitching. Thursday's the perfect draft late pitching.
Okay.
So I think that's can give people kind of a sense. So basically, I looked at ADP and here's the team you put together if this is your plan or not. Yeah. And so on Friday, maybe we'll get the chance to look at all 3 and kind of compare them a little bit. But I think ultimately, and to say this, the rankings have, auction value marks and the draft book's got auction value marks and all that. And I've said this over and over again. Might have Spencer Strider for $38. Ain't no way in hell I'm ever spending $38. Okay. The numbers there are telling you what you're going to have to spend to get the guy. And that's it, right? Would I do that? No. Would I take Spencer Strider or Garrett Cole in the first 10 picks? Hell no. Hell no. There's no way I'm doing that. So if those of you out there want to build your team like that, have at it. If you choose the right guys, it's a huge win. It's a hit. It's a success rate and all that. But as we continue to see on literally a daily basis, you cannot trust pitching. And so I agree with you completely. Going pitching early, I don't want to do it. Going pitching late, piling up arms, I'm doing it.
So again, Giolito, bad news, UCL, flexor strain. That's going to cause issues for drafts that are ongoing. I'm in one of them. Drafts that have already happened, Rays in multiple ones there, and certainly drafts moving forward. This is why we say it's better to wait than to go early with those most important leagues. The bad news for Giolito, the not so good news for Verlander. Ray, as we sit here today, 24 hours after spending a lot of time talking about Ronald Acuna, the news is pretty good. If you believe what's being said, irritation is what we are hearing. The irritation in the knee, which sounds very benign. That doesn't sound like anything that is worrisome. And Ray, the Braves are saying opening day is still in the cards now for Acuna.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, and so let's believe them. I will say, echoing Kyle Frank, when you've got an issue at the start, it doesn't usually go away, so that's something to keep in mind. Maybe this will temper the $65 bids and the insanity that every single draft in the known universe was going Acuna number one. Maybe it'll temper that a little bit, but I think this news generally, as long as there's no hiccups, we get a week away from this, no one's going to remember it or care anymore. They'll have just filed it away as who cares. So something to think about. Again, we also talked about this yesterday when we were discussing Acuna. And if you missed it, you can always go to youtube.com @Elite Plus Network. You can go to the website, Elite Plus at the top of the page. You can listen on all your podcast forums, Pandora's, Google Podcasts, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. We were talking about the fact, now that I lost my train of thought, that I went on the sales pitch, Kyle. What was it? What was I talking about? Shoot. What player?
We were talking about Acuna, the fact that he's still a number one guy, even with
it's too early for me on the West Coast here. We were talking about this yesterday on the show that Acuna fully healthy, he's still 53 bases instead of 73, right? And that drastically changes his outlook. So I think, if anything, to take away from this, even if you're not going to drop him in your rankings at all, pull your expectations back. If you think 50 steals is crazy low, I think that should be your expectation, not crazy low.
Okay, so there's where we stand on the injuries. Now, there are further injuries. Sonny Gray, we're hearing a mild hamstring strain. The Cardinals are still crossing their fingers for opening day, but I would say probably not. We'll see. But Sonny Gray is always a guy who last year was healthy and threw innings, but that's always kind of been a struggle for him. There was an issue with Cedric Mullins yesterday. The Orioles are saying that's nothing severe with the hamstring. Tommy Edman of the Cardinals, still not doing much of anything with a wrist injury. He may start the year on the IL. Good news, Matt McClain, he's going to play this week. At least that's the plan. Good news, Gunnar Henderson was in the lineup yesterday. Good news, Cody Bellinger, I think, is going to be in the lineup tomorrow. So I don't want to just pile on with the bad news. There are some good things developing, but not enough of them here in the early going. Okay, moving on from all the guys who are hurt, Ray, let's talk about guys who probably on this list, half of them will get hurt this year. Starting pitchers, that is the position that we're focusing on this week. Today, we're focusing on the starting pitchers who were surprises a year ago and kind of guessing, will they do it again? And yesterday on the show, when we introduced this position, we talked a lot about Eflin and Steele, and people can catch that by firing up some of those broadcasts on the YouTube page. You can always find those if you miss us, or you can download the podcast and catch it. But Ray, moving ahead to today, looking at some guys outside of the best, but guys who still surprised at starting pitcher. And one of them, actually two of them, Ray, are guys who've always been pretty good, but then they took another step. And you see them right there, Pablo Lopez and Chris Bassitt. They've always been attractive. They've always been guys you consider. They've always been guys that you draft as like an SP3, SP4. You don't really expect them to explode, but you say, they can give me innings. They can give me quality starts. They can give me numbers. Both those guys advanced another step last season. So we'll talk about them. We'll talk about Jseus, Luzardo, Michael Wacha, Merrill Kelly. Let's start with these two guys, though, in the American League, Lopez and Bassitt. They did not blow anybody away. Lopez, though, did take a pretty big leap, Ray. All of a sudden, this guy became a surprisingly effective strikeout arm last season.
Yeah, I think in the case of Lopez, we saw tantalizing evidence with his time in the Marlins that this guy could be an upper-end pitcher. The problem was he had a really hard time staying on the field. And in his last season with Miami, he threw 180 innings, and the performance was really good. He goes to the Twins, and there's always that trepidation with how's the guy going to perform in a new park and all that. Well, he performed great, like you said. He set career best for victories, for innings pitched. The strikeout total, to your point, went through the roof. He had been slightly better than league average in the strikeout rate, 23, 24% range, right around there. Last year was 29%, which is like a huge jump. That's almost 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. So it took a huge jump there. And I think the big key for him was that he, A, stayed healthy, and B, refined his pitch mix. And, this is something that we're hearing all over the place nowadays, right? Guys adding pitches, trying to figure this out. And I don't know. I mean, I think some of the fun, if this makes any sense, of the game is lost, because all these guys do is they go in, they get computer analyzed, here's your arm angle, here's your release point, this is the pitch you should throw, and they throw that pitch. And so they make it extremely difficult on the hitters because they get them to throw pitches that fit their biomechanics better, that fit their release point better, that fit within the spectrum of their other pitches better. So the science of pitching has gotten very refined. And I think in the case of Pablo Lopez, they found that right mix. And by finding that right mix, they really created a scenario where he was able to kind of pitch to the fullest of his potential. And when you add in the innings pitch total there too, you saw what can happen last year. He was an SP1.
Yeah, SP1 for him, and it was dynamite for Bassitt, Ray. I mean, this is like, I don't want to call it a breakout. He's always kind of been on the periphery of being something special, but 9th year in the big leagues. And what is this, his 3rd team? He'd been with Oakland, the Mets. Oh, I guess he was with the White Sox too. But 16 wins last year, and that follows up 15 the year before and 12 the year before that. So we always sit here and say, oh, you can't, predict wins. That's what we always say. But the last 3 years, you're talking about a guy who's posted 43 wins, has consistently been kind of in the mid 3s with his ERA. And Ray, he's kind of that 105 to 114 kind of whip here. His numbers are pretty consistent over the last 3 years. So maybe there's not more for Chris Bassitt, but it's more of the same for the 35-year-old.
And he is one of my guys. He's one of those pitchers that I thought Lucas Giolito could be this year with a bounce back. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But Bassitt is stable, boring, and not costly on draft day. So he's a perfect target. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll go back even further. The last 5 years, his ERA has been 3.39 and his whip has been 1.14. That's really good. It's really good. And last 2 years, because of the victory totals, I think people really took notice, as well as the innings pitched marks, right? And it's a little quote unquote scary to see a guy throw 180 and 200 innings at 34, 35 years of age and never have done that before. So there's some concerns like, oh man, But this also points out something you talk about a lot, Kyle, and that is when these guys get to be this age, teams just say, go. Like, we need you, but go. We trust you. You're a veteran. We know you can handle the innings. We know whether today you don't have your fastball or today you don't have your changeup, you'll figure it out. And I think that Bassitt has earned the trust, obviously, of his teams. He's shown durability the last 2 years. And while I wouldn't draft him expecting a full repeat of last season, I think, again, the price point is still in an area that you could draft him and feel pretty good about at least breaking even, if not still making a profit.
Well, you mentioned the last 2 years, right? It's 63 starts. Yeah. I mean, that's big boy work for Chris Bassitt. But even further, you can make the argument the last 5 years have been pretty damn healthy. Yeah. And obviously COVID's in there, so you're going to see, 63 innings, but 11 starts in 2020. Mm-hmm. What I'm getting at is he got a 5-year run of avoiding injury for the most part. There have been a couple of missed starts, but he hasn't had anything to keep him out for a month. And that also is dangerous, Ray, because it's like, okay, that's really good, but then we're just closer to the first injury, I guess.
Lucas Giolito, same thing, Kyle.
Yeah. So Bassitt's a guy I love as an SP3. He's not exciting. He is kind of boring. You do have to, you still probably want some big strikeout arms for your 1 and 2, which you're normally going to get anyway, but that SP1, SP2, you might want to get some more strikeouts because Bassitt doesn't profile as anybody more than like 9 per 9, maybe right at a batter per inning, which is not bad, but you need to cover yourself with those first 2 selections. The other names we got on this list, Ray, surprises of last season. The most enticing of these by far is Jseus Luzardo with the Miami Marlins. He's probably as enticing, Ray, as even Lopez and Bassitt, honestly. He didn't have quite the year they had, but he's got more of the tool set, and he's also younger than these other 2 guys.
Yeah, he's 26, 3rd-round pick in 2016, but the scouting community has long predicted this guy to be a number 2 or potentially even a number 1 starter at the big league level. This is not a back-end rotation. This is not a Chris Bassitt type. This is a dominating guy that can lead a rotation. And, it didn't happen with the Athletics. And there was a lot of confusion with why it didn't happen, because if you broke down his pitches on a pitch by pitch basis, right? Plus.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff is like, this is the problem that they think they found was, and you hear this a lot, it was the shape of his pitches. It was his release point. He wasn't tunneling things effectively. Batters were picking up the pitch. His curveball had a hump, so batters recognize it. So he worked very hard on getting the pitches in a more tighter zone for the release point in the way they look coming out of his hand. And it's made a huge difference. And now the stuff is playing up. We saw that last year with the 200 plus strikeouts. You want to project further growth. You do, right? You do. But I'm kind of going to stick at last season. Like, I think that's who he can be. I think there's still some walk issues at times. I think sometimes the control command, vacillates from outing to outing. So I'd really be looking at a repeat of last season. But again, if he repeats what he did last year and has 200 plus strikeouts and a 3.6 ERA, I don't think anyone's going to be upset with that.
And then the last two names we have on this list, Ray, you do have to convince people to even care about, like Michael Wacha. He's now with the Royals. Merrill Kelly. Merrill Kelly, it feels like, every single one of us since we started fantasy baseball, Merrill Kelly's been playing. It hasn't been that long, but it just feels like he's one of those guys who's just always hanging around, Ray. Wacha the same. Where do these two guys stand? Because look at the numbers, folks. I think you'll be very surprised how good those two names were in 2023.
Yeah, Merrill Kelly somehow he's become Ronnie Dangerfield because he's basically Chris Bassitt. I mean, numbers wise, he's basically the same guy. And he went to the KBO and he came back and he figured things out over there. Eric Fetty's trying to do something similar. There's a hope in some circles that he'll do that. But Merrill Kelly has done it. And the last 2 years, ERA has basically been exactly the same. It's been like 3.3, 3.4. He's thrown 200 and 180 innings. He's had 177 and 187 strikeouts. The whip is 500s apart. He's produced two virtually identical seasons that include volume, that includes strikeouts. He had success late in the year last season. I think he's very much in that Chris Bassitt zone of a guy that you can't expect more from. He's 35 years old. He's closer to the end than the start. But given the price point, he's someone that you could certainly consider adding because he's like a stabilizer. He and Bassitt in particular. I think Wacha's a different case because I don't know if Wacha can throw 130 innings. I don't know that, even though the skills and performance have been there. Guys like Kelly and Bassitt, I think, are the perfect foils to, for the people that want to take Yuri Perez early, right? You're going to get this guy who's going to throw 129 innings, 139 innings this year. Let me get a veteran that's going to throw 180 stabilizing innings. And I think Kelly fits into that mix. Again, Wacha, Kyle, he's really found it, but you've seen it. He's had a hard time staying on the field.
Wacha's a kind of a bridge pitcher for me. And what I mean by that is the era from where we are today to where we were maybe 10 years ago. Where we are today is we're going to protect every young arm and they're all going to throw 98. That's really where we're at today. Where we were 10 years ago is, you can get by on pitching and guile and things like a sinker and things like a curveball. We may protect you, but then we're going to turn you loose. And I say Michael Wacha is that bridge, Ray, because when he came up, this was a guy who didn't throw, he didn't blow you away with 99 or 100. He was just a good pitcher, had a pretty good arsenal, great curveball. He arrived in the big leagues, Ray, and, what year was that in the playoffs where he was just unhittable? And he was untouchable for the Cardinals. He had an insanely good, I think it was 2014.
14 or 15, yeah.
Yeah, 14 and 15. Just an insane run. And it looked like, wow, this guy's the next Adam Wainwright. He's going to be here 15 years. That kind of guy who competes for Cy Young awards. But Ray, even then, they protected him and he couldn't stay healthy. And here we are 10 years later, where I guess everybody's come to the realization this is what Michael Wacha is. If we keep him to less than 95 pitches, and if we only ask 5 innings every time out, we may be able to get 30 starts. So it'll be 30 starts, but to your point, Ray, it's a very quiet 30 starts because he's just not somebody, even at his advanced age, they're still treating him like he's a 24-year-old because he's so fragile. Everybody knows it. He knows it. And now it's like, just give us 5 innings, guy. That's all we need. We'll even pay you a lot of money. Like the Royals are going to give him money to do this, Ray, but he's not going to be asked to go into the 7th inning. He may do that once this season.
We were wrong about the year, but you were totally right about the performance. 2013 was the year with Wacha. He went 4-1 with a strikeout an inning in the playoffs. Like that's
like the ERA was sub-1 or it was something silly.
In
Maybe
30 innings as a rookie in the playoffs, he made 5 starts and went 4-1. Really good. I mean, Wacha's, like you said, he's getting paid $16 million, which is not chump change. And he's 32. And he's another one of these guys that he didn't go overseas like Kelly, but he figured it out the last 2 years. Like his last 2 years, he's been right on par with guys like Kelly and Bassitt. The problem is the last time he threw 130 big league innings was 2017. And so, yeah, Michael Wacha's a tough guy to evaluate on draft day because his numbers the last 2 years tell you he should be taken higher than he is being drafted. Yeah. And I think the skill set says that what we've seen the last 2 years is not fluky. He's figured it out. But it's 127, it's 134 innings, and to your point, the teams have been, and I don't assume the Royals would change this, really afraid of letting him go through a batting order a third time.
Yeah, he was one of the first guys being here. He was one of the first guys, right? You heard about that with Michael Wacha, third time through the order, and now it's a lot of guys. But he seemed to be, 8-9 years ago, one of the first guys to get that tag of you can't send him out there a third time.
And with the way the game has changed, and it inarguably has, teams are more than willing to pay a guy and to roll a guy out there that's going to give them 5 or 5 1/3 innings every time. Mm-hmm. They're totally comfortable with that. They'll go to all their bullpen arms and all that. So Wacha is very difficult if you have a set your lineup on Monday scenario. He's very tough to roster because there's very reasonable chances you're here midweek, they're skipping a start or whatever. But if you're someone that likes to, roll pitching and you're someone that has the ability to change your lineup on a daily basis, he is attractive because he should be very solid on a per start basis.
In terms of repeatability, yays and nays. And again, not saying an exact repeat, but for the most part, it's a positive season versus maybe a below average season. Let's go one by one. Yay or nay? Pablo Lopez. I say yay.
Yay.
Chris Bassitt, I say yay.
Yay.
Luzardo, I say yay.
I'll go yay.
Merrill Kelly, I'll say yay.
Boring, but yay.
Yeah. Michael Wacha, I'll say yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of like we talking about, I'll say the same. Yeah. But I think a lot of these guys are right. This is where they're at. Like there's not another level. There certainly could be a floor because of, the situation.
Okay. Well, Luzardo is the high end. Is there another level for Luzardo of like where, oh, wow, he finished top 5 in the Cy Young this year?
I think it's possible. Of all the guys we're talking about, I think his stuff is the most top end. The answer to your question probably will come down to volume. If he's able to throw 200 innings, you throw 200 innings, you get 248 strikeouts, you win 15 games.
You're in the Cy Young.
You're in that, so I'd say Luzardo if I had to put a bet on somebody.
Okay. Pablo Lopez, of course, making the move from the Marlins to the Twins. That leads us to our team preview today. The Minnesota Twins are on the docket. Actually, a fairly interesting team when you look at them for 2024. And one of the interesting names is where we're leading off, right? Matt Wallner. Big dude. He looks like he can crush the baseball. And last year he did. We always love to play the game of, if we double the games played, we're looking at this sort of player. Check it out there. 14 home runs in 213 at-bats. And as you say at the bottom there, just above the photo, he's a 30 home run hitter, Ray. It wouldn't be surprised if this kind of player were to hit 30 home runs this year.
Yeah, and it's really been interesting because the Royals had Prado and Pasquantino at first base, and the Twins have basically had Larnach and Wallner in the outfield. And I think at points in time, this guy was ahead of that guy or whatever, but now it's Wallner who's surging.
Yeah.
And, the game is accepting of a guy that is going to hit 250 with 30 home runs. It's very accepting of that. And in the case of Wallner, he's also shown an ability to control the strike zone and to take a walk. So this is, this is not full Joey Gallo because I think he's a more well-rounded hitter, but we do have the ability for this guy to hit 30 home runs. If he's got a 9 or 10% walk rate, we're looking at it 330 on base percentage, kind of at the low end. We might be talking about a guy in the 350s or something like that. He was 370 last year. So he's very intriguing. And I think there's a significant chance that when it's all, all shakes out, that we're looking at 480 plate appearances for him. But there is some uncertainty there because a lot of this also comes down to the development of Larnach, the health of Kirilloff, the health of Buxton. If all those guys are ready to go, then we might get a little bit of a squeeze.
Yeah, but that causes me to laugh, right, when you're saying it comes down to the health of Buxton, the health of Kirilloff.
Yeah, right?
It's like Matt Wallner better be ready to play then, and some other Twins as well. This Twins lineup, I think, is stronger than people realize. Now, again, it's relying on guys like Buxton, and we're going to talk about, Royce Lewis as well here coming up. Like, there's a lot of, guys who may only play 50 games, but if you get 135 out of them, this lineup is going to play a lot better. And Walder's, Ray, one of those guys who I think can stay in this lineup simply by staying healthy. Like, I don't know that he needs to hit better than 230, and I think he could still be in this lineup. Teams love left-handed power. They love it. And as you look at their team right now, he's the best left-handed power they've got, I think, over Kirilloff. I mean, Edward Julien, who's a good player, but not really a slugger. Walder's a guy, I think, who if he's able to, Ray, will get 140-plus games. I don't think the average is going to be all that great, but I could see him as like a 235 with 28 homers. You kind of look up and say, oh, he got 88 RBIs. I got him in the 23rd round. This paid off. Not a guy that was a centerpiece, but a guy who gave me something off the quote-unquote bench round for my team.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Duvall, Kyle Schwarber Jr. kind of player. Jack Sawinski, but a little bit better kind of player. Like, so, I think that he's potentially attractive, too, in on-base percentage leagues, for those of you that play in those, because, like you saw, it's a massive gap there between his average and his on-base percentage. And if you go back and look at his track record in the minors, again, constantly posting a walk rate of over 10%. So I legitimately think even if he struggles to hit 230, we can still be looking at a guy who posts an on-base percentage well above the league average. It could be 330, 340, something like that. So that's intriguing. And that kind of, again, follows the path of a Joey Gallo or Kyle Schwarber, not Adam Duvall, by the way.
Let's get to our 4 questions with this team. And Ray, let's get right into the big one, Temptation Island. That's what we got with the Twins. Byron Buxton and Royce Lewis. Are you done with Buxton, Ray? Are we there? I think I kind of finally, maybe, I hope, am done with Byron Buxton.
What's his ADP? His ADP right now, since the start of February at the NFBC, is 229.
Oh, gosh, now I want to get in.
Yeah, right? And that's the intriguing. I bet that number by the time season starts ends up being 215 because people start grabbing him because of the price point. At that price point, sure. Like, that's miles away from the 80 or the 60 or those stupid prices people have been playing for years. He's 30. We've talked about it forever. His last season of 95 games played was 2017 when I was like 4 years old. So, I mean, the skills are elite. He says he's healthy. He wants to run this year, all these kind of things. Yeah. You can dream, folks, but there is no bigger dream in baseball. Maybe Giancarlo Stanton, but there's no bigger dream than baseball. I'm willing to pay the price.
I think Buxton is still more dream worthy, right?
I agree. You're right. I'll pay the price.
What's funny, Ray, is okay, we're finally kind of fading. Mm-hmm. It's like Royce Lewis has just taken over his spot that he used to own. I mean, Royce Lewis is the top 50 dude who, like, I get it, I see it, but we got the same issue going on that we had with Buxton 4 years ago.
Yeah. Royce Lewis has had constant injuries. It's eerily similar. Kyle's correct. Lewis is only 24. He'll be 25 in June. We talked to him years ago on the Prospect Show on Sirius XM. Everyone raves about his makeup. We saw last season in the regular season and in the postseason, what he can do. Just like Buxton, a guy that has power, a guy who has speed, a guy who plays good defense. All these kind of pieces are very similar. And let's just hope that it doesn't end up the same way. And, we can dream, but to your point, with Lewis, the price point is so high inside the top 50 overall that we're not allowed to dream. He has to do. And, we've seen it, but will we see it over 140 games to verify or support the price point? I just don't know the answer to that yet.
Question number 2 with this team, and you see me staring off into the distance here. I think this is stunning, Ray. The fact that when you look at shortstops for this season, Carlos Correa is 25th at the position. Now, some of the guys ahead of him are dual positional eligibility guys, but 25th when you look at ADP among shortstops. And Ray, it begs the question, is he washed? Which sounds wild, but he was terrible last season. I want to give him a pass, Ray, and if I can get him in the bench round, which is, to me, just nuts to think you can get Carlos Correa in the bench round, but you truly can. I love taking a shot on that guy in the bench round, hoping that last year can be blamed on the shuffling around, the injury, not knowing where he's playing, first year in a new, all that stuff. And now I can get him. What's the overall ADP? He's 240. I mean, that's, again, I guess that's 20th, 21st round. I can do it. I don't love it, but I can do it with Carlos Correa. But I think a lot of people seem to be totally out on him.
Buxton or Correa, Kyle, they're the same price.
I think Correa.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've said this forever. You know this. I love Correa. I think everything from the moment he steps on the field to the moment he steps off the field says, I got to have this guy on my team. But he doesn't run. The batting average has fluctuated. Now, you know, for those people that forget, he was in San Francisco to sign a contract with the Giants last year when it all fell apart. I'm sure that, you know, that messes with your head. He lost money. He didn't know where he was going to play, all that kind of stuff. He got the $200 million from the Twins and then went out and was kind of just a guy. I think the biggest issue he has is that he appears to be a 135 game kind of guy at this point. He's going to have issues with his ankle and his knee and his back. Like, it's, you know, and there's not a skill that stands out enough to get me excited. He's more Willy Adames than he is Francisco Lindor, as an example, right? He's just more of a, let's hit 25 home runs and be there. Yeah. I think at the price point, again, he's fine. I'm not pushing his ADP. To your point, I'm comfortable with that. I wouldn't push that. I'm disappointed that at 29 years of age, it hasn't come together the way I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, the plan was for him to be the best shortstop in baseball. 5-category guy. And it hasn't happened. And it's probably not going to happen anymore. But it's kind of wild. He's a fine player, makes a ton of money, but it was actually expected to be a lot better with Carlos Correa. Question number 3, the man who finished 7th in Rookie of the Year voting last year, Edward Juilliard. Ray, I want to bring him up because I feel like he's the hitter that nobody is talking about. You know, kind of in Minnesota, you know, they had it with Polanco. They had it with Arise for a while. You know, these guys that are good players, and then you wake up, oh, they're better than I thought. Edward Julien could be that guy. We've only seen, you know, 400 plate appearances. But, Ray, there was something to kind of get a little entranced about, and he probably is the leadoff hitter for this Twins team. So that's a guy, again, I don't feel like anyone's discussing him. Obviously, Lewis, Buxton, Correa, those guys get a lot of attention. This guy, Edward Julien, I think deserves a bit more going into the season. Yeah,
there's reports that suggest that he realized he was having some struggles against lefties, so he worked on keeping his shoulder in against them. So he's made some slight mechanical changes. And I think the issue that will hold him back is not his approach. It's not his ability to take a walk. As you noted, 380 on base percentage last year, potentially the leadoff hitter this year. He won't run, so he's not a prototypical leadoff guy. And I don't love, and this sounds funny for a guy that had the success he had last year, I don't love his hit tool. Okay. I think he's a 250 hitter. And if you're a 250 hitter, you need to be hitting 30 home runs, and he's not a 30 home run guy. So, you know, I think he's a better real world player than he is a fantasy option. But if he does hit leadoff and plays a full season, mostly of games, they'll platoon him a little bit. He could score 80 plus runs. You know, and that's, you know, if he hits 20 home runs and scores 80 runs, I think he's usable, but he's just not dynamic.
Yeah, the key for him is if somehow, some way he can get that average like 275, which you're kind of going the other way with him. Right. But if he can gain 12 points in the positive direction, his on-base percentage, he does strike out a lot, but he also walks a lot. His on-base percentage was strong last year. He could be a guy that if everything broke right, could be like 375 with the on-base percentage. Stolen bases, I don't know if that'll ever really happen for him. Didn't appear to be part of his game. And again, you got to keep the bats behind him healthy, but there could be some runs scored. And that's what you're looking at with players of his ilk. They're not going to be stellar, but I think he is overlooked as a middle infield option for people, maybe even a bench option if you were to fall to that spot in your draft. Last thing on the 4 questions, a bit of an overlooked rotation. And this deals with Pablo Lopez, Ray, but also I think Joe Ryan is maybe a overlooked guy. Bailey Ober is an overlooked guy. Chris Paddack, I think everybody thinks, well, that was a bust. He didn't do anything. And he's a real wild card because he was injured all of last season. So I'm not suggesting Paddack to anybody, but those first 3 guys, Ray, Lopez, you almost have to remind people how good he was. And I think Ryan and Ober probably better than most people think when you look at those other 2 arms in the rotation.
Bailey was on the breakout pitcher of the year list. Didn't end up going with him, but he was there. And I think the issue with Ober is that he's 6'9", 260, and he throws 92 miles an hour. So there's like this disconnect. Like, why isn't this guy throwing 102, right?
Well, maybe he's going to stay healthy, Ray, because he throws 92.
He might be onto something, Kyle. He's reportedly added some velocity. He hit 95 the other day. So, you know, I think he's really good. He's very solid. I think what you see is what you get with him. And it's, he's got a 1.11 whip through 57 starts. Like, he's a good pitcher. I don't think he's a star, but he's a really good pitcher. I think Joe Ryan is kind of the ideal SP2.
Yeah.
I found myself getting him in a couple of leagues because he's not on that tier that everyone rushes to get, but everyone, when they rush to get pitching, I'm getting hitting, and then I'm going to pitching, and here he is. I think that if he can bump the innings total up to 180, we've got a banger potentially there. We talked about Lopez, and Paddack he's tremendously talented. He's been hurt, and it sounds like he's hit every roadblock. He's hit every flag on the thank you, on the way to success this year, and it doesn't sound like they're going to limit his innings, so they're going to basically let him pitch until he can't, which is good to hear. But yeah, he's fine. He's flyer guy. He's probably an in-season pickup guy. Someone to keep in mind.
Guest starter, by the way, is Anthony Desclafani, who it's not a baseball season if Anthony Desclafani's not floating around somewhere in 2024. Ryan's my take a chance on guy, Ray. Is who's your guy?
Matt Wallner. We talked about him. Let's go.
Okay. My pass is going to be Kirilloff. I don't care anymore. I know they're wanting him to play every day, but it's not going to happen. I'm out.
Yeah, my pass, unfortunately, is Carlos Correa. Sorry, Carlos.
Oh, okay. Prospects-wise, they have some guys. Maybe most notably for our purposes, Brooks Lee. And I bring him up, Ray, because he could be a guy that plays third, short, or second. So, any injury would kind of open up a slot for him. Royce Lewis is at third, so that could be an easy injury. Correa, we've seen injuries in the past, so Brooks Lee, I don't think it's a draft and stash, but when he is called up, he will certainly be added in fantasy leagues all over the place. And again, this organization, we don't think about the Twins as a great one with prospects, but they have done a good job of building a pretty decent prospect pool of late. That is a look at the Minnesota Twins here as we get rolling. We'll get you another team coming up tomorrow. Quickly, Ray, we always spotlight a feature in the MLB Fantasy Guru Draft Guide. You're talking player profiles. Now, we just did Matt Wallner. These kind of short snapshots of what you like to do with your player profile. We noted earlier, you've got a handful of them up that are available in the draft guide. There are many, many, many more to come. In fact, Ray promised pretty well one a day. Ray, I love these columns. A lot of writing, a lot of in-depth dives. This is just one page of what you've got with Jake Berger as kind of an example. They obviously go much more in depth, but people should love stuff like this where they could get an in-depth read on the pluses and the minuses, then kind of your final take on the player.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now. And again, basically one a day the rest of the way, basically. Rengifo, Jake Berger, who we're using as an example here, Lance Lynn, Jung-Hoo Lee, Sonny Gray, Taj Bradley, Chas McCormick, Aaron Savale, Lane Thomas, our breakout pitcher of the year article, which is like almost 6,000 words long. Most of these articles are 1,300, 1,500 words. And you can see on the screen there, kind of like Kyle was saying, there's a look back. What are the numbers? There's then the breakdown of who the player is. Are the numbers that we saw last season valid? Are they invalid? Should we have concerns about them? Is there growth? Is there pullback? There's a section talking about playing time. Where in the batting order is the guy going to play? Is he a lefty, righty? Platoon guy on the hill. Maybe this guy's never thrown more than 100 innings. Is it legitimate to expect him to throw 130 this year? So we kind of break down the player piece by piece. And I try to, talk about plate discipline and successes and minuses, ballparks, lineups, all that stuff goes into it. Yeah. And then at the end, I basically just copied how I end all of these player profiles with giving a short synopsis of the strengths and the weaknesses of a guy, and then kind of my thoughts on, let's boil this, we boiled it all down. Let's boil it down even further to a paragraph. So that's kind of the general way I do this. And again, 1,300, 1,500 words is kind of the sweet spot for most of these columns.
And what I like about this, Ray, is sometimes you'll get features like this put together, and every guy that Ray's going to write about or whomever is going to write about are guys they like. That is not the case with this, Ray. This is not just, hey, this is a guy I like, and here's why. There are also guys that you profile and dig deep, and people may wonder, well, why do you spend so much time on a guy who you don't like? I think that's the beauty of it is, okay, why don't I like him? And let's figure out, those guys deserve just as much attention as the guys maybe you are a proponent of for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes the guys I don't like, it's not that I don't like them, quote unquote. It's that this guy, had 25 home runs and 15 steals last year. And this year, I think he's going to hit 18 and steal 9 bases. Like, I think he's still solid, but he's not going to be the guy we saw last year. Maybe it has to do a lot with perception and ADP. Like, why is this guy's ADP 75 spots above this other guy? Sometimes I'll even say to myself, did I miss something? And I'll go back and really analyze the player and be like, no, I didn't miss it. Most cases, hopefully. I didn't miss anything, and that's how it is. So it's, I don't just pick out the 18 guys I love, go get them. It's oftentimes players that I think deserve to be looked at because they're likely to go up or down. Sometimes there's expected growth, and I see it being a flat line, which is important. But a lot of it plays off ADP and kind of people that are being asked about in Discord, on social media. Who are the hot button guys like Taj Bradley? Let's talk about him, right? He's a Ray, he throws hard, all that kind of stuff. So I don't, to your point, I don't just cherry pick the guys I like and say, yay, this is why I like them. That's not the purpose of the profile series.
Are all these located like within one link on the draft guide?
Yeah, if you just go to the top of the page on seasonal, scroll down to article, player profile. It's right there. And then you can see it. So it's also fantasyguru.com/category/MLB-player-profiles. Top of the page, seasonal, articles, player profiles. You're there.
So there it is. Jake Berger, there's a very small example of what Ray's looking at, but kind of pinpointing those player profiles, which will be coming hot and heavy in the month of March. Okay, let's leave the baseball. Leave the diamond, leave the grass, and let's go to the hardwood. Let's talk some hoops. Joining us for his weekly visit on a Tuesday, as long as he didn't say, gosh, these guys are taking forever, I'm leaving. Justin Fensterman is with us here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Good to see you, Justin. I know you and Ray get to talk every single night over on Sirius XM, but you and I only get to talk once a week, so I'm looking forward to it. How's it going, man?
It's good, Kyle, and just so you know, I account for about 12 minutes of stoppage time whenever you bring me on. So we're good there. You know that. You know I always love joining you, and it's always great hanging out with Ray, too. Ray, are you sick of me yet? I know I'm talking a lot of basketball in your ear.
Yes.
Thank you. See, this is what Ray does. If I ask a question, I get the one-word answer, Kyle.
Yeah.
What a bit.
That's when you know it's exactly what you're thinking, Justin. Is exactly right.
Right.
But Ray, I hate to break it to you. We got another 10 minutes of basketball.
Okay, I can handle it. I can do it.
You got a favorite team yet, Ray? Is there like an NBA team that you're starting to follow and really get fall in love with?
Probably the Nets, because Justin hates them so much.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't think I have a favorite team, but I'm learning a lot. You can see it there 8 to 10 Monday through Friday on Sirius XM. I'm learning a lot listening, so I'm enjoying it.
Well, let's learn more. I will start with this because we wondered aloud about this a couple of times on the show. Victor Wembanyama, he was named NBA Rookie of the Month, I think, yesterday for the month of February. And it's happening, Justin. I know last time we spoke about it, we wondered about the minutes. Because they were limiting him. They were sitting him. They have turned him loose in the last month. I mean, now we're regularly seeing well over 30 minutes. And, man, it's pretty astounding to watch, isn't it?
It's very good. And with that, for me, it's good seeing him play 32 to 34 minutes. But I don't think you're going to ever really see this guy play 40 minutes regularly or 38 minutes. So I think we're going to be in that 32 to 34 range. However, tonight he's questionable. So we don't know at this point. Maybe the biggest injury issue that we have, a few players being questionable. So we don't know if he's going to be playing tonight in a matchup that he's destroyed in a couple of games against Houston.
By the way, you want to target the centers against him, right, Justin? Because he plays.
Look at you!
I'm listening.
Yes! But you know what, Ray?
Ray Flowers.
But let me just tell you, Ray. Normally, I would go after the center point prop, but Alperen Şengün's point prop is just too high. It's over 20, and he doesn't really hit 22 that often. So I'm staying away from it tonight.
Okay. By the way, were you drinking Dutch Bros earlier? I thought I saw you drinking a cup of
No,
coffee.
I'm an East Coaster, Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay, all right, Dunkin'
Yes.
Donuts. You're hanging out with Matt Damon and Tom Brady. I got you.
I mean, it's the best iced coffee. I don't drink hot coffee. I only drink iced coffee. It could be 2 degrees outside. I'm still drinking iced coffee. There's nothing better than Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sorry.
Kyle's not a fan.
No, I'm not a fan of their hot coffee. I have no idea about their other junk. But yeah.
Kyle seems like a Folgers guy. Just a basic.
My mother was a Folgers lady. I don't know. I think I have no problem with. I love McDonald's coffee. Love McDonald's coffee. Even Burger King. Burger King has good coffee, believe it or not.
Wow. Yep. Our buddy Phil Backert always liked the McDonald's coffee too.
Yeah. I think he's a Folgers guy too.
Yes.
I am not a Folgers guy. That stuff is you're hardcore if you're that's like guys who chew Red Man.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true.
Pinch between my cheek and gums. Justin, on Elite Sports Show, we've been talking about the net, Dennis Schroder. Talk to us a little bit more about him. I know, again, because I've been listening, that a lot of his value seems to be tied to the ill health of Ben Simmons. But talk to us about Schroder and why he's starting to pop up on your radar on the DFS game.
I mean, unfortunately, it's also on DraftKings and FanDuel's radar too, because that price point is starting to go up. When Ben Simmons is in, it's very difficult to determine the Nets' usage because he at times is in the post. He takes a lot of time with the ball when he has the ball in the post or on the drive. So that's a lot of usage eaten up. And Cam Thomas on the other side has a lot of shot volume. So when you eliminate both of them, it gives Dennis Schroder a bigger bump than just about anyone. Cam Johnson benefits, but Dennis Schroder is going to be your main floor general. And we continue to see, I guess, Ben Simmons' leg isn't as just minor as we thought when it came to the injury because he's missed a couple of games and he's going to miss another one tonight. So I know it's a back-to-back for the Nets, but the price point is still right where I'm fine with it. I don't think that the 76ers, because you have to go game by game with it, I normally like it in higher octane situations. This one's going to be going at a medium pace. So for tonight, I'm probably going to go back in. The big question is whether or not I write up a Betty for it because we've been cashing on Dennis Schroder a lot, the points and the assists too. And Ray, the one thing that we saw last night and we kept talking about on Elite Sports Gametime was that he was taking all these shots in the first half. The second half, he was barely shooting, but the assists were still going up, which was good. But then towards the end, he finally hit another basket. So he's a very streaky shooter. So if you think you're in good shape and well beyond pace by halftime, it ain't over till it's over with that guy.
Talking hoops to Justin Fensterman. Justin, I think the Jazz have a rotation at the guard position, but Jordan Clarkson and Collin Sexton really had big games last night. So talk to us about those two guards in the DFS space. And Jazz are the Jazz, but they got some things going for them, it seems like.
So here's the thing with the Jazz. The Jazz are a great home team. They are awful on the road. And overall, I mean, they're right now towards the bottom of the Western Conference. They've got pieces, but they haven't put it all together just yet. And the rotation's the hardest part to figure out because it just seems like Lauri Markkanen is the only safe player that won't get pulled, won't get their minutes messed with or anything like that. When it comes to the guards, because Keontae George has been so impressive, Jordan Clarkson still coming off the bench, but they still utilize him heavily with the second unit, kind of like what we're seeing in Washington with Jordan Poole now. When Clarkson's in, he's going to take a lot of shots and he's going to have time with the ball. So normally in DFS, with all of them kind of floating around that 6K range, some a little bit more, couple little bit less, it's very hard to really go all in on those guys as value plays, except in a situation where either Lauri Markkanen is hurt or out. So now you've got that shot volume and usage that's going to be sprinkled onto everyone and everyone wins. Or they're in a situation where they're in a major fast-paced environment like we saw in last night's game, or if they're in a blowout situation where the team is just going to blow them out. Let's say they're facing Boston. Boston's probably going to blow them out. So that's when I'll utilize those guys and really push them a little bit more as value plays. It's just been very hard predicting who's going to give the top value between those three.
Justin, we started the show with baseball injuries, Giolito and Verlander and Acuna, kind of updates on that. Basketball is much the same. And we do have injuries. Scotty Barnes, he's an all-star. He's been great this year. Going to miss some time with a broken finger. Also in New York, Jalen Brunson, who's been great this year. We got an injury there. Sounds like the Barnes injury is a little more severe. Brunson, kind of give us what the lowdown is there. And then talking Toronto, who kind of picks up that slack for Scotty Barnes?
Sure. So you may ask for Brunson. Brunson's surprisingly questionable for tonight's game. The Knicks would be morons to play him tonight.
So
I would be no, they wouldn't. No, why? They've got multiple starters out, and this guy looked like he tore his knee on the way up. I remember sitting there, and I had a bunch of people text me, "Season's over." Yeah. Luckily, he's questionable. I don't even think he should be questionable. Give him at least a game to rest. Seriously, he needs to rest that knee up at this point. I don't expect him playing, but the fact that he's designated as questionable is a positive sign that there's no tear or anything like that, just some probably soreness, and that's all. On the Scotty Barnes side, that's a different story because that right there is a month-long injury. And not only that, Kyle, but then a couple of nights ago, sharing the front court with Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl dislocated his finger. So now the Raptors have both of those guys out for a little while. So in Toronto, what you're looking at is RJ Barrett is now your prioritized scorer. Emmanuel Quickley is kind of your secondary. He's going to have a lot of time with the ball. However, I was looking at some usage charts, and Barrett actually grades out better than Quickley, which actually surprised me a little bit. The usage difference between them with Barnes out was 4% favoring Barrett. So that's just something to consider when you're looking at props in high-octane, paced-up environments. Other guys that are going to get the bump, Bruce Brown, if he's healthy, he'll be playing a little bit more. Kelly Olynyk is going to be taking a lot more shots, and he's going to be starting as well. But he's more effective from the outside. So if he's not hitting his shots, then he's useless. DraftKings priced him up big time tonight. And then finally, someone who I thought was going to be better last year in Utah than he was, now a member of the Raptors. He got the start last night. Ochai Agbaji, I thought would be a little bit better, and he's been a slow developer, so he's going to see a few more minutes because of this. The Raptors really they don't have any size. They're done.
Justin, out east, you got your Dunkin' Donuts. Let's come out west and talk some Pete's Coffee and talk about the Western Conference. The Lakers and the Warriors both having a lot of success here down the stretch. I think each have won 7 of 10 games. Is this solidifying the play-in tournament in the Western Conference? Is it going to be the Lakers and the Warriors getting a chance to get a ring this year?
I think the teams you see there right now are going to be the teams that are going to be in the play-in tournament in about a little over a month from now. I mean, look at the team. San Antonio, they don't play any defense. They just don't have enough. They know it. Portland, they keep getting hurt. It's like everybody on this team gets hurt, and it's not just hey, you're out for a game. It's you're out for multiple games. It's been everyone on this team. They're going nowhere. Memphis has been banged up. I'm just waiting on a piece of news that Desmond Bane is going to be out for the season, and that just shows that they're going to be giving up on the season, which means, by the way, down the stretch, Jaren Jackson Jr., don't be surprised, no stranger to injury, if he's shut down for the year. Houston's been very disappointing, and I think part of that, guys, Tari Eason has been out, and now he's going to have surgery, so he's done for the year. He really made a difference in their midcourt defensively. They kind of cracked since, and they haven't really been able to recover, so I don't think they're going to make it. And finally, like I said, with Utah, a team that really doesn't play good defense, but an excellent team at home, I just don't think they have enough. And with how good we've seen the Warriors and Lakers playing, you can even see it when you watch both teams. I don't see them surrendering those final 2 spots.
That is sweet music to the ears of Adam Silver to know that the Warriors and Lakers.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, not having them. It's like then he, at that point, Kyle, he doesn't have them in there. You pray for the Boston Celtics to be able to make it out of the East. Otherwise, you're going to be down some ratings right there.
Oh, people will watch Phoenix. People will watch the Denver. They'll watch others.
Dude, I don't think Phoenix is going to make it, man. I'm trying to talk myself into Phoenix, but these guys can't even stay on the court. It's a joke.
Yeah, Booker's hurt now. Beal's always hurt.
It's a game of musical chairs, and someone always loses there.
It's depressing when Kevin Durant is your most stable guy. It's rough if that's the guy you count on. Okay, Justin, good stuff as always. Is that a Sonics Durant jersey or is that Ray Allen?
You know what? I need a Sonics Durant jersey. This is a Ray Allen jersey. Actually, no, this is a Gary Payton jersey.
Jack Sigma, come on.
Jack Sigma.
No, Sean Kemp would be much better at this point. You know.
I used to have a Sean Kemp jersey. I gave it to our buddy Rob Tuesday, though, as a gift.
Our Detlef Shrimp would be a good one.
So would you rather have him on the Pacers or the Sonics?
He's probably a little better on the Pacers.
It's a tough call for me. Yeah, it really is.
It is a tough call. I kind of enjoyed him maybe more. I saw him more on the Pacers because him and when the Pacers and Bulls would always meet, Jordan and all the Reggie Miller. Those were good days too. Justin, a pleasure, man. Tonight, you and Ray, 9-game slate, so a lot of action to be following there.
Baseball action, Kyle. We're actually going to be doing a draft show together tonight for good old Tout Wars. So we'll be on from 8 to midnight Eastern on Fantasy Sports Radio. Yep, we'll be with Steve Phillips for the first 2 hours and then Howard Bender for the latter 2.
Awesome. That'll be a great one. So that starts at 8. What time was it again?
8 p.m. Eastern. But then Wednesday and Thursday, we're back in action. And, hey, we're ready to dominate. That's what we do.
Awesome. Love hearing that. Justin, take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
He's the man, Finsty, joining us talking some hoops here on FSD. We close with some football and some relevant news. It's happened. Russell Wilson is done in Denver. And Ray, they're eating a lot of money. I mean, I don't know if this I never know what to say. This is fact. This is it. Because then there's dates involved and how much are you going to eat this year? But we're looking at probably $85 million in dead cap money that the Broncos will be swallowing by releasing Russell Wilson.
Yeah, everyone complains because baseball doesn't have a salary cap. All these other sports have salary caps, and hockey's real. I don't think that basketball and football are real.
No.
So it's like, but yeah, you look at these numbers with you signed a guy to a $240 million deal. How much of is he getting? How is there $89 million cap hit? He's getting paid. Seems like he's going to get $39 million and then whatever he gets from another team. So he's going to be making $40+ million. But I'm in agreement with you. We need a capologist on the show to explain the rest.
That's a brutal decision if you're the Broncos. And it's amazing how awful that move has worked out, Ray. It's not just the money, it's the draft picks. It's the fact that right now you put so much in the basket of Russell Wilson, Ray. You're turning to Jarrett Stidham. They've got to make a move this offseason, 100%.
I mean, legitimately, Russell Wilson probably ends up in the Hall of Fame. Probably.
If you end with this much of a sour taste, Ray, I don't know that he does.
I mean, last year they went 7-8. If they had gone 10-7 and made the playoffs, would he still be the quarterback? Or they would if they let him play the end of the season. But 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. 67% completion percentage. His QB rating was 98.
An attitude? Doesn't this scream the guy has become a bad apple?
Some, and they said he didn't execute the offense properly. Okay. But how about give him a receiver that can do something? There was Cortland Sutton bust.
Receivers, Ray. They got receivers. They got running backs. That offense still was kind of sleepwalking. And I'm not blaming it on Wilson. I mean, Sean Payton deserves blame here. Remember, he was the offensive mastermind. Mm-hmm. They were just a bit different from last season. They were better, but not anything dramatic.
I'm just saying that to think that Russell Wilson is one of the 5 worst quarterbacks in football, which is how he's being treated, is wrong. He's not. Was he great last year? No. Did he execute things? No. Maybe it's his attitude. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of Russell Wilson. I think it's gotten to the point where the rah-rah is great when you're winning 10 games and winning your division, but the rah-rah is not so great when you're not winning. And so that's probably what it is. But again, it'll be fascinating to see, who pick them up. We're hearing that teams like the Falcons, and they're not even interested, which tells you something about Russell Wilson.
Pittsburgh, you would think, and maybe I don't know if their personalities would connect or clash, but you think Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson, Pittsburgh needs a QB, but they're supposedly not interested. Justin Fields isn't of interest to Pittsburgh, according to the reporting. The Falcons, that somehow, some way, they're involved in Kirk Cousins,
which would be something, wouldn't it?
Atlanta, so. Yeah. Quarterbacks, every year I think, wow, we had a lot of quarterback movement. I guess it's just going to be the lay of the land moving forward. You got all these draft picks. People want the top 3 quarterbacks, and now you have Russell Wilson out there. You might have Kirk Cousins out there. So it'll be fun follow. Always is with the NFL. Jason Kelce, by the way, retired. I know most people caught that. We should also mention Josh Donaldson retired, who had a solid career, Ray. It's not Hall of Fame worthy, but certainly a guy who at one point was a full-blown MVP candidate for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, he was great. I think he was one of the first guys that kind of did the launch angle tour as well. Like he really started, he promoted that in the press and everything. But yeah, you look back especially, and 2015, 297, 41, 123, 122. He almost went 340, 120, 120. Pretty damn good.
Yeah, he was a hitter and a gamer, as they like to say, but the game is over for Josh Donaldson. I would suspect he'll be on a MLB Network crew near you. He's kind of got that attitude. If he wants to do it, I think he'll be fun to watch there. Okay, Ray, back tomorrow. Again, you and Justin and Steve Phillips and others tonight, Tout Wars. That'll be fun. 8 o'clock over on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Maybe we'll spend a little bit of time recapping what went down in that draft tomorrow on the show. More team previews, more starting pitchers, probably more injuries, just being honest with you, right here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. Ray, you have a good night, okay?
You too, Kyle.
That'll do it for us. Enjoyed having everybody on board. We'll meet back tomorrow, 23 hours from now, with Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com.